Welcome to this video series where I'm going to be attempting to restore this fairly old and fairly broken Pavoni Europiccola from 1983. So as you can see, it's pretty rough. The base is kind of rusty. I bought it from the guy on a boat and he didn't seem to really know what to do with it. It doesn't work. But as you can see, it's been maintained somewhat recently because it has some handwriting at the bottom. The cord is kind of broken. I have to fix that. Everything is super dirty. The portafilter is full of gunk. There's all sorts of nasty things. You see, this basket's pretty dirty too. So we'll have to do something about it. Thankfully, a good kefisa bath should take care of it. So let's try that. Yeah, it's pretty bad. Let's dunk it and let's get back to it in a few hours. Or maybe less because it seems to already be working. Tip for this, you always use the hottest water you can get. It helps dissolve all the coffee oils and all the gunk. Plastic temper, original, really not great, but since it came with the machine, I'm going to give it a clean as well. We also have a spoon that's been used apparently. I don't think I'm going to use it, but I'm going to clean it anyway since I have the product. Single shot basket, also dirty but not as bad, but same treatment. Kefisa for a few hours. Now that I think of it, I should probably have put this jar somewhere else so you can see. But anyway, it's going to soak in there for a little while. In the meantime, we can look at the rust. It's pretty bad. It might need a new base, or maybe I'll just sand it or wire brush it. I don't know yet. I'll try to keep this short. So we have two 14mm nuts, which are right there at the top of the piston. They might be on pretty tight, so a little bit of heat may help. Don't use penetrating grease or WD-40 or anything like that because it's not food safe and you're going to be making coffee with this. So, yeah. After that, we have to remove a couple of snap rings. So a special pair of pliers is pretty highly recommended. You don't need to remove both sides, you can just remove one side, like so. Make sure it doesn't jump so you don't lose it. They're pretty standard and easy to find. Then you remove the pin. A lot of parts are pretty dirty on this machine, but I'm not going to clean them yet. At least not very thoroughly. So you flip the handle over. And then, in order to remove the piston, you have to use a hammer. So you can use, ideally, a rubber mallet or a rubber tipped hammer so that you don't damage anything. And here we're going to replace the group gasket. So as you can see, it's pretty brittle. It just cracks. Yeah, all right. This is garbage. Throw it away. Let's make a little trash can here. All right. So, yeah, that's not great. So this one, I don't know. I might keep it. Maybe not. I have a replacement, so I might use that for now. We'll see. The thing is, the newer ones have definitely much better machining than the old ones. So it might actually be a good idea to replace that. And it's a very cheap part. Now removing the piston is a little bit hard. You have to be a little persuasive, but eventually it slides out like so. And now we can see there's any problem with it. There's a little bit of lime scale, but this will go away when we descale afterwards. Two gaskets on this one, they're identical. They're kind of V-shaped, so they need to go in a certain order, in a certain direction. I pull one out. They might be a little brittle or stiff. Once you get them out, you can just pull. I see that It just breaks. Doesn't matter. Throw it away. So there's a bit of a skirt underneath this gasket, and the skirts are kind of outwards. I just want to put a new one in. It's clean enough. I'm not going to clean it anymore. Again, like I said, descaling will take care of that. And you see, so the lip goes on the outside. But it's not great, so let's put a little bit of grease. This is food safe, by the way, in case you were wondering. It's pretty high temperature, and you know, most coffee machines use some sort of lubricant in some places, and this is what most maintenance people use. So we just spread it a little bit so that we don't damage the gasket when putting it in. Wipe off your tools. It should go on a little bit easier. The good thing with new gaskets is that they're pretty stretchy, so you're most likely not going to damage them. Just don't use any kind of metal tool because that will tear them apart. All right, and now, you know, the grease helps line it up. We're going to do the same with the upper one. Yeah, same thing, a little bit of brute force, but not too much. Not that the gaskets are really expensive, but every time you break one, you have to wait for a new one to come. Yeah, so, you know, make sure it's seated properly, which is not the case here. Keep pushing. Using gloves is really nice because there's good grip. All right, I think I got it. Yeah, all right. All good. So as you can see, it flares outwards at the top and at the bottom. Quick wipe so there's not too much grease. And this should be good too. Okay, so next up we need to take the group head off. So this is 10 millimeters. There's two little screws. But in order to do that, you have to remove the other snap ring and the other pin. So it's a little bit awkward. So you take the snap ring off, then you take the pin out. They're both the same and the snap rings are pretty standard. And you take the handle off. I'm not going to spend a lot of time cleaning because I'll go back to it to polish it and, you know, treat any rust in another video. Just like, you know, just a quick wipe. I'll do a follow-up for cleaning and maintenance probably in the same video when I paint the base. All right, so now we have two 10 millimeter screws on either side of the group. Those should not be too tight. Remember, it's all brass, so it's pretty soft. So you never want to over tighten anything. So actually I'm going to remove the steam one because it's a little bit in the way and I need to remove it for later anyway. So let's just remove it. That's 15 millimeters, I think. You need metric tools for this. Yeah, so just remove it. So sometimes it comes off pretty easily, but some other times you have to kind of give it a few taps to get it to come out. Yeah, this is the sleeve for that pin. And things start falling, it's going great. More brute force, I guess. I'm going to pull a little bit harder on this. Use a little wedge. Plastic, of course, because you don't want to scratch anything. It's starting to give, and I got it. And you didn't see, of course, because my arm was in the way. Sorry about that. So here we are. This is the inside of the group. And that's where I'm making a pretty big mistake because I'm not removing that tube, and I should have because it's actually kind of clogged. I didn't find out until much later. So here there's a gasket that you probably also want to replace. It's not in terrible shape, but you know, they're like $1 each. Check diameter, and yeah, looks good. Same thing here, a little bit of grease just to make sure the O-ring sits properly and doesn't get torn when you tighten everything back up. But a really thin coat, not too much. So there's another snap ring in there that holds another little O-ring. If you have the right tool, it's not terribly hard to do here. And then there's a washer. I'm going to try to get out. All right. So that's the washer. And then behind this washer, there is the O-ring we're going to replace. Just pull it out. Here it is. Throw it away, grab a new one. Same treatment, a little bit of grease. Then you put it back in the same way. Push it in. Now we put the washer back. Press it on pretty good. You see the washer is back. Then grab the snap ring. Hopefully it doesn't fly away. Much better. All right, now put it back in. A little struggle here. And it's on. Just make sure it's in the groove. Yeah, pretty good. All right, so let's Let's see if the piston will go back in. Just a little bit more grease. That should do it. It rubs a little too much for my taste, so I'm also going to grease this up. Might be overkill, but you know, you really don't want to damage those seals. So you gently press it in, and the piston should just slide. Now we're going to put the shower screen back on and the gasket that goes with it. So this gasket is not exactly the same one that I had. It's a little bit difficult to put in, so you want to use something soft like plastic to kind of press into that groove. And that's done. And you just slide it back in gently. It's kind of a feel thing, so if you at any moment you think the gasket is stuck, like now, you see it came out. You have to be a little more careful. Just slide in gently and then put back those two 10mm screws. There's also a gasket in this cap that needs to be replaced. So we can just break the existing one. It's very dry and brittle. I'm also trying not to injure myself. Yeah, it's not going well. Okay, time for a blade. Dry and brittle, so this goes into the trash. Now let's take care of the steam tap. So 15 millimeters, which is this one, and you just have to loosen it. It's usually pretty easy unless there's a lot of scale. Then you just unscrew the whole thing, like so. There is one gasket to replace right here, and in order to do that, you have to remove the handle. So the handle is held by this roll pin. Seems to need more persuasion. So let's try this again. And we're through. So this is the pin. Don't lose it. Then you take the handle off and you disassemble. There's a little washer, so don't lose it either. Put a new seal on. Put the washer back. Throw away the old washer. A little bit of grease. Not too much. Now we put the handle back. It should be pretty easy. Put the pin back in. pretty good. So now comes the worst part, which is the side glass, which is essentially a glass tube, and it's very difficult to remove. It's sometimes a bit brittle. I've actually injured myself with this one off camera, thankfully. So it's really not great. You have two nuts that keep that metal cover kind of captive. So top one, bottom one, that's 17 millimeters. So take that out, loosen it, and the glass might come out. If it does not come out, you can heat it up. You can use a variety of techniques, but keep in mind that it's very, very brittle and that it will cut you. So underneath here there is a little washer, and underneath the washer there is a gasket. So it's kind of a compression fitting. When you tighten those two nuts, those two 17 millimeter nuts I just removed, it compresses the gasket and makes it watertight. But if it becomes brittle, it will leak. So you have to replace it sometimes. This one wasn't too bad. It's probably been replaced. But since I have spares, I will replace both of them. A little bit of grease, same thing. It will help the side glass when it goes back in. So the top's a little harder to show on camera, but it's pretty much the same as the bottom. A little washer and then rubber gasket that will also replace, even though it's not too bad. And so here the order kind of matters. You have to put that middle sleeve first so you can hold that little washer, and then slide the side glass in, which is very easy because everything is cold, the gaskets are new, and there's a bit of grease. And then you tighten this up, not too much. If it leaks, it's always better to tighten it a little more than tighten it too much and have the glass explode on you. So in this case, the glass has not gone far enough at the bottom, so I had to loosen it up. And now we're going to put the steam one back on. So this one doesn't have any gaskets or anything, you just put it back. It's a compression fitting, so you just tighten it up. $15mm again. I'm just going to wipe this off a little bit before I put the sleeve back in. It's kind of full of old grease, so when I clean it up, I'll take care of that. But I just want to make sure that the machine actually works, that the boiler doesn't have issues or anything like that. Because if it does, then there's no point in cleaning it up. So I made a little mistake here. The piston is not aligned. So what you do is you just put the nut back on. And very gently you make it turn until the hole lines up. The handle only goes back on one way, which is this. Then put the pins back in. The order doesn't really matter, just make sure everything moves. Put the snap rings back on. It should go on pretty easily, if you don't drop them. And then you finish by putting the nuts. So the piston should not get to a point where it touches the screen. So you kind of feel at the bottom. In this case, it's all the way. And then you just tighten it. And that should do the trick. So that completes the mechanical restoration. Next time I will take care of the power cord. I will also show the results of this bath in the back where some of the dirtiest items are currently soaking. And we'll also see how well the water flows and so on. I have this gasket which will go on the boiler when we take care of the cosmetics. Thank you.